But I want to start off with our vision statement. The vision statement of Emmanuel is a community of Christ followers being transformed by the word, inspired by love, impacting the world. I'll say it again, a community of Christ followers being transformed by the word, inspired by love, impacting the world. Through the rest of this series, we'll be walking through what that really means, how we can try to get some level of understanding. I'm getting a little bit of a ring here, Mike. And how we see Scripture building all of this to be. And so as we open thinking about this, I'm reminded of, I think it was September 2016. My wife and I are closing down a night. Boys finally in bed, both of us completely tired, but both of us happy to try to find a small window to spend some time together before we go to sleep and start the whole process all over again. I remember sitting down and she was so excited about a new television show that was coming on. Now I gotta be honest, I wasn't as excited as she was about the television show. I had hoped that we could watch some sports, but I was good enough and smart enough to know I had been married long enough to find out that this wasn't a battle that it was worth waging on this particular day. So I buckled in. And as I buckled in, there's a television show and the screen starts. We had recorded it and it starts with a black screen. Then it says these words, "This is a fact. According to Wikipedia, the average human being shares his or her birthday with over 18 million other human beings. There is no evidence that sharing the same birthday creates any type of behavioral link between those people. If it is, Wikipedia hasn't discovered it for us yet." Then the scene changes, and we go into a husband and wife pregnant, celebrating a birthday. This is the opening scene of a series entitled This Is Us, a series that I did not desire to watch, but must admit I got pulled into. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. At least for like the first two seasons. By season 3, I got tired of crying every single Thursday. So I said, you know what? I'm over it, okay? Like, I got enough in the world to cry about, okay? I don't need to be crying about this. But one of the things that was really good that I thought the writers were very intentional was making commonality and difference. I'm not sure if you might have recognized that, but 4 individuals shared the same birthday, a father and triplets. Now, one of the triplets actually passes away, but another, born the same day, left by his parents, is brought into the fold. So although they came with 3 particular triplets, they still leave with 3 triplets, although they are not the same ones that they came with. All of them have something in common. They're all born on the same day. Some of them more connected than others, yet they're all amazingly different. Parent to children, white, black, male, female, the varieties of differences can go on and on. In fact, the movie takes us next to the varying lives. They're all situated in different places, all fighting different things. Similarly, one sitting in a business office, looking to be at the top of his game, still something undone. Another struggles with weight and trying to figure out how to lose weight, how to consistently be good, but yet that struggle, especially for her, was more than she can handle. Another is an amazingly accomplished actor. People know him, celebrity resources, yet is still not fully seen. And as we go through the series, each of their lives is built more and more as we see their connections to their parents, even the ones that we didn't even know were available at front. So many things in common. and so many things that are different. And then comes the statement, this is us. And I cannot think of a better way to describe the community of God. I cannot think of a better way to describe the church that God intends and leaves behind. I cannot think of a better way for us to enter into a conversation about who we desire to be as Emmanuel than by saying, this is us. So I want to invite you on a trip with me as we discover, as we unlock and are challenged by the way that God sees community. Everybody say community. If you will, open your Bibles with me. Now we're going to jump to 4 very different texts, 1 verse each text, that will lead us into the message for today. Acts chapter 2, verse 42 will lead us out. Then we'll move to 1 Corinthians, then to Romans, and then to Philippians. Now, I know back in the day, flipping through your Bible, it might take you a little longer. Many of you with technology, you got your whole Bible in alphabetical order. I can't tell you how I feel antithetical. I feel like that is against Jesus. I struggle with that. My wife loves it. She's like, I don't need to do that. It's in alphabetical order. I remember as a kid going through learning all 66 books, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. I had to go through the whole thing. And now we just put them all in alpha order if I would have just known, right? All right, Acts chapter 2. And if you're here and able, I ask that you would stand with us. If you're streaming and you're in a position where you can stand, I ask that you would stand with us as we begin this exploration. Acts chapter 2, starting at reading verse 42. And it says, all the believers devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship and to sharing in meals, including the Lord's Supper, and to pray. 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 9. And it reads, don't worry if you can't get to it quick enough, we'll put it on the screens. God will do this, for he is faithful to do what he says. And he has invited you into partnership with his Son, Jesus Christ, our Lord. Romans chapter 15, verse 26. For you see, the believers in Macedonia and Achaia have eagerly taken up an offering for the poor among the believers in Jerusalem. And last but not least, Philippians chapter 3, verse 10. I want you to know Christ and experience the mighty power that has raised him from the dead. I want to suffer with him, sharing in his death. As you're getting ready to take your seats, help me introduce the title for today's message. Everyone say, this is community. You may take your seats. These 4 verses, similar to a variety of others, have one thing in common. Each of them in the Greek text has a word, koinonia. Now, for those of you that probably have been around church for a little while, that term has probably been used in ways for you to understand. Oftentimes, when we think about koinonia, we think about the first definition, fellowship. However, koinonia as an understanding is much bigger than fellowship, as in let's go to the fellowship hall or who we hang out with, but really has a much bigger, a much broader understanding that calls us into an idea about community. Now, The student in me, having to write paper after paper, is forcing me to make sure that when I utilize terms, I try my best to make sure we're all thinking the same thing. The word community is a large word, one often used in a variety of different ways. And there are a variety of running definitions that one could grab. One definition given by the National Library of Medicine, where doctors went out and kind of polled a variety of different people groups trying to get how people think about community, came up with this definition. A group of people with diverse characteristics who are linked by social ties, share common perspective, and engage in joint action in a geographical location or setting. Another definition given by a PhD student studying the way that politics uses the word community came up with another definition that I would love to pair with this one. He says, this is Toby Lowe, a group of people who share an identity-forming narrative. That there is some story, some belief that they attach themselves to, and that story, that narrative is not just something that is exterior, but it begins to develop and form their own identity. That at the heart, a community is a diverse group of people coming together under shared understanding, work, and movement together. So when we come and we say that we are endeavoring to be a community, we're recognizing that everyone that will come into our doors will not always be the same. You won't always have the same gifts. In fact, you may not always have all of the same worldviews. You might vote differently. You may live in different places. Your socioeconomic status might be different. Even the way that you attempt to go into the world, there may be a vast varieties of differences. Yet, when we come together, we have a shared understanding and a shared desire to be together. I know I'm not going to get a whole bunch of amens on this one. It's all right. I brought my own. They are in my pocket. I will pull them out as necessary because I want to come against a notion and an idea about what church is that I think is actually antithetical to the word church. I think we have gotten so used to the American society idea of individualism. And hear me, I am not anti-America, but I'm anti some of the ideas and principles of America that are against God. We believe that church are individuals that happen to worship in a space, then leave back out of that space, and that is it. Can I tell you, there is nothing further from the truth. I dare say, if the goal is to come in and to be anonymous in church, you have missed the idea of church. If the goal is to come in so that nobody talks to you, then you've missed the idea of church. If the goal is to come in and just kind of cursorily say hi, but then leave back out of the room, then you've missed the idea of church. In fact, if you want to make sure that people can only get so close to you, but really I want you to stay at arm's length, I want to tell you, you actually have missed the very point of church. And I know, man, I say this recognizing that I don't like everybody. Can I just be honest with y'all? Like, I'll go back up there if you just want me to be the pastor, I will. But, you know, when I come down here, I'm trying to be honest, right? I don't like everybody. I don't. I don't like the way that everybody think. I don't like the way everybody act. Sometimes it bothers me. In fact, can I be honest? One of the things that I struggled with, even in going into the pastorate, is that I dislike adults that act like children. I'm honest. I enjoy youth ministry because I expect immaturity out of youth. In fact, you're given the grace. I tell my children this all the time, and I know it sounds terrible, but you know that there's a truth to the statement. I say kids are stupid. Not stupid as in they don't learn anything, but it's the reason why we call them kids. We recognize that you're not going to make adult decisions. You're not going to constantly think ahead of time. There will be a variety of things that you don't do. This is the reason that we don't want you to vote to a certain age. This is the reason why we don't want you to drive to a certain age. This is the reason why, because we know that you're not thinking and holding all the information necessary to make a decision. We get that. Thus, we call you kids. However, once you enter into the adult category, we have different expectations for you, that you're not just thinking about yourself, that you can think beyond just this moment, and that you can make good choices and deal with tension. That's our expectation. And when adults can't do this, it's hard. I cannot tell you how blown away I am by how many people would rather talk about a problem than deal with a problem. Don't worry, just keep looking at me. I'm not talking about you. I know it. So, and I'll just say sometimes the quieter that you are, the more you kind of implicate yourself. So sometimes, even if this is you, you should just be clapping. Oh, you're right, Pastor. You are so right. Because we've gotten to the point where I think we go through life hiding, running from tension, trying to make sure that we don't have to deal with anything, and then we wonder why life doesn't get better. In fact, some of you say this is the reason why you don't want to deal with the kids. Right? I don't feel like going through all of that. And there's nothing worse and no other way to fracture what the church is really meant to be than by bringing this idea that I don't have to be connected to it. Because if you're not connected to the church, but you come, you're just commodifying the church. The church is a commodity that you use. It is for you. And when you don't like something, you leave. And when you like something, you stay. Right? When I love it, I do. When I can go, I can choose it because it's really about me. I've made church just like everything else, another thing to sit on the smorgasbord of stuff that I could pick, and I can pick and choose how I want to do it, but I never really give it access to me. First, Acts chapter 2, we get this amazing space where it talks about how after the Holy Spirit has come, right, Peter stands up and does an amazing message. I imagine it was a very long message, but an amazing message. So amazing that 3,000 people, after hearing his word, says, I want to be a part of that. After hearing that I want to be a part of that, what you're talking about, the followership of Jesus Christ and the way that those who call him their leader, they interact. Man, this is so amazing. Let us come together. That then they come together and they start acting weird. Come on, y'all. The Christian church, as it starts, is really weird. There are people who in no other place hang out with each other, but are hanging out at church. People that society would say by either your heritage or your culture or your socioeconomic status, you should not be in the same space, are constantly coming together. In fact, they do it so much that people start wondering what is up with them, because it doesn't make sense. And they start actually trying to be together. That when Acts opened up and talks about the way that they didn't forsake the fellowship, they didn't run away, is they actually were doing the hard work of trying to get along with each other. And we could tell that this is hard work because if you continue in this same book, they start raising up grapes. Wait a minute. Some of us are treated in weird ways. The widows from this side don't get first choice, but the widows from this side do. In fact, we don't even get deacons around the church until the problems come up, because they're trying to figure out how do we live with each other. Everything in our life has told us that we shouldn't be together. Everything in our life has told us that we shouldn't be able to mail together. And yet we come to this church and we're constantly around each other. What does that mean? How do we live like that? And I feel that the call to the church, the community, is the same thing. We're still saying, should we be around one another? Should we trust each other? Should race be the only thing that separates us? Should money be the thing that separates us? Should age be the thing that separates us? Should our hairstyle be the thing that separates us? And Scripture is constantly calling us to see something that is so much bigger and so much more attractive. If I could be honest, I don't think there's anything more human than the need to depend on others. From Genesis, where Adam is there and God looks down and says, no, you need something else like you. You're built for a community, not for being around others just of difference, but being in relationship with those of similarity. It's not good for you to be by yourself. To leading to the ideas that even still to this day, one of the worst ways that we can treat humanity, what we do to make someone who is the farthest away from societal constraints, is to put them in solitary confinement, to separate them. Because it is nothing more human than togetherness. In fact, the sociologist once said that we don't even know what it is to be human until we watch other humans. That children understand themselves not just by themselves, but by seeing their reflections in the individuals that are all around them. So when children see love, they feel love. When children see security, they feel secure. And it changes the way that they enter into a world. Which breaks my heart even more when I think about stuff that's happening in the Gaza. So, he says that they didn't give this up. That they started doing stuff that just doesn't make sense. That community literally means being together. And I acknowledge that this is vulnerable. It's hard, but this should be our vision. That if you're comfortable sitting in a church, in a building, and never knowing anybody else in that building, you never want them to know your name, you never want to understand what they're going through, then you miss the beauty of community. See, because sometimes you don't understand the strength that God is doing until you recognize what the other person had to do to get there. See, we look around at each other as if they all had no problems and everybody else is just here and we're the only ones going through. But you don't know the person sitting next to you just lost a loved one. You don't know the other one over here just lost a job. You don't know the other one over here just got a diagnosis. You don't know the other one just over here has been dealing with depression. You don't know the one over here has decided that they're going to follow Jesus for real this time. This one over here is making life decisions. This one over here. But when you see that and you see them opening their mouths and still saying, for God I live and for God I die, all of a sudden it says, maybe I can too. There's something about community. This fellowship now is more than just having fun together, although that's an element of it. But it's now choosing, I want you to hear that, choosing to be together. We choose to be together. When you come to Emmanuel, and you join the family, we choose to be together. We choose you. You might have funky breath. We still choose you. We might encourage some things. Hey, you want this mint? No? Okay, so what you going to do? If you're not going to take the mint, what are you going to do? No. Fellowship is one part, but then partnership is another part. Everybody say partnership. Another way that this same term, koinonia, is translated is partnership. In fact, in the scriptures, watch this. It says that we are invited in partnership with Jesus Christ. That one of the things that connects us is not just us, but it is our connection to God's Son that we begin to partner with. And partner means that we work with. How are you working with Jesus? How are you in partnership with the one that gave his life for us? How are we working towards that end, and how are we doing that together? It says you are now called not just to be in fellowship, not just to choose one another, but also to work together, to have a shared goal of making sure other people can experience the community that you experience. Gets a chance to get the message that you've gotten. Gets a chance to understand the God that you know. To make sure that we are constantly working and building, because what we can build together is far greater than anything we can build by ourselves. The community is fellowship, but it's also partnership. It's us all being at the table, offering what we have. You all know, and I pray that you know, that the church is not the richest institution in the world. Some of y'all might point to the Catholic Church. We ain't Catholic. Let me just say that. It's not the richest as in material possession, but it is one of the richest as it relates to individual human capacity. The sum of everything that we need is actually already in the church. The know-how, the knowledge, the ability is locked within the individuals that are here. And how much better would it be when we begin to work together like that? In fact, it's so amazing what can happen that the early church was willing to give away everything else to go into common partnership, because they recognize that it is not just the things that I have attained along the way, but it is what I can do when I'm working with another that draws us together. So this is partnership. How are we partnering together to make Christ known? To love one another, to share that love, to move the mission and vision of our church. How does that work? And Paul writes that you've been asked to partner in this way with God, God's self. How mind-blowing is this? That part of the community, one of the things that makes us special, because there are a variety of different communities, is that this community, the one that God is making, called the church, is invited to be in partnership with God. I had a friend once, and they were working to become partner. And of course, my naivete, I'm like, well, what does that even mean? Like, I know besides, it probably means, you get more money. Like, what else does it mean? It means that you have an invested interest in the corporation, that the firm now is not just a place where you're employed, but a piece that you now have ownership in, that you are brought up there to not only work, but also to help make decisions and direction. You get to be at the heart of what it means. And he says that we get to do this with God. That the church is called into partnership with God. This is mind-blowing. That it's about fellowship. It's about partnership, but it's also about offering. Everybody say offering. In Romans, it says the same word, koinonia, is not just fellowship and partnership, but it's also the idea of sacrifice and giving. That the early community recognized that it is not just what we do or what we say if we're not willing to put some skin into the game. That our material possessions are not meant just to separate us. Push pin. The trajectory of American history and Western society has been built on the premise of personal ownership. Follow me. Personal ownership. Personal ownership is important because it's a very strong incentive, right? It's an incentivizing tool. The more that you work, the more that you can get. But there was a shift probably around the early 20th century that made ownership not just about the stuff, but it began to communicate a certain thing about you. And you can see this, like if you go and you start tracking advertisements and everything, there was a point by which you were actually advertising things. You would advertise the material. Hey, this is silk and this is really wonderful. It feels great. Or, hey, this is, a tool that will make your job so much easier. But soon the advertisement began to change. It started to say that you were a certain type of person if you had a certain type of thing. They figured out that people really don't buy things. They buy ideas about who they are. And as they understand who they are, then they keep buying the things. So now if we connect the things to the status, even if you don't have the status, you'll go out and buy the things chasing the status. So you need this type of car, this type of clothing, this type of home, this type of look, so that you can be this type of thing, because you want to be that. So now what we're selling you is not the fact that there's an actual thing. We're selling you that you need this to be that. And we bought it. And this is the very thing that the early Christian community was against. And this is why it sounds so radical. I'm not saying that this is what we should do, but I'm saying this is why this is so radical. This is why they sold everything. Watch this. That means that the rich people were no longer the rich people. And the poor people were no longer the poor people. They just all became people, because there were no materials connected to them to identify them, because now they've put that all in common. So what is in the middle is for everybody. So if everybody is rich, everybody is rich. If everybody's poor, everybody's poor. But if everybody's poor, then poor don't mean poor, because that's what everybody is. I only know poverty when I see what poverty ain't. I know you don't know what that means. I grew up on the south side of Chicago. My parents gave me everything. We lived the good life. Oh my God. I thought we had everything. Me and all my friends, we walked around. We didn't get all the stuff for Christmas, but nobody got everything for Christmas. That was just how I went. I got hand-me-downs, and my sister is older than me, so don't judge me for getting hand-me-downs. However, what I'm trying to tell you is, I was thankful that some of the styles started to overlap. I was like, girl, you got some good Jabot jeans. That's back in the day. I'm dating myself. Girl, them Jabot jeans, fire, girl. You know what I'm saying? You should pass them on down. Cross color? Come on, give me them cross color jeans. That's what, okay, whatever. I don't care about y'all. Because all of the stuff began to define us. But what happens when everybody has access to the same stuff? It frees up our definition not to be connected to the materials, but actually be connected to who we really are. Watch this. Community is meant to be the place where you're actually loved for who you really are. I'll say that again. You're actually loved for who you really are. Doesn't mean that you're perfect. Doesn't mean that you do everything right. Doesn't mean that you don't make any mistakes, but it means that you're loved. It means that we appreciate you. It means that we cover up the indiscretions. We carry one another. We work together because we're in partnership. Thus, we offer this together. And Paul says that you cannot have a mark of koinonia if we're not willing to give materially to it. Now, I'm going to say this because this is black church, and I run into this all the time. The black church cannot talk about money. The black church cannot talk about money. And I'm not saying that we're just black. That doesn't mean that. But I'm saying the tradition. And you know why that tradition is? Because people believe that all preachers are stealing from the church. Just keep looking at me, because y'all know y'all done thought it. Like if I rode up here tomorrow with a Bentley, everybody would be like, man, pastor is raping the church. Right? You don't know what other jobs I got, but that's the first thing. Because apparently y'all giving that much money, I was able to go out and get a Bentley. Maybe you haven't been looking at our finances. But anyway. But this is the reason, watch this, because we don't know the history, so we misconnect stuff. The reason why preachers typically had more resources is because when we first came out of slavery, black church in particular, they were the first ones educated. Since they were the first one educated, they became all things to all people. They were the therapists. They were the political strategists. They were the individuals that had things, so everything pulled to them, and they were supposed to bring the community up. Now, absolutely, there were individuals that fell off of that bandwagon, misused what was given to them, but it wasn't because all of them were stealing. It was because there was a community idea that as we we bring each other up, that each other gets better. And all of a sudden there becomes a shift when the world shifts, and now African Americans can get a variety of different jobs. Because you do know that there was a point in our history not too long ago where we couldn't have jobs, we couldn't sit at tables, we couldn't be employed, we couldn't do this, so we had to do it together. And there were small groups that then began to move. But all of a sudden the world changed and we start getting new opportunities. We walked into new places and we forgot from where we came. We acted like we got there by ourselves. We acted like nobody else was the reason that we got opportunities. We acted like nobody else's blood, sweat, and tears went into the fact that we have opportunities today that were never afforded. So now, if a black church talks about money, it's money hungry. But not that it's biblical principle. So, the fear about talking about money has also meant that we don't teach you how to rightly live for God. Because you actually walk around like your possessions and your money is yours. And it's not. It is God's provision for your life that God has set up for you to be able to use for your family, but also for the community. So then the community can continue to do what the community needs to do. You are this, and this is part of what it calls fellowship. This is like when you go out to eat, and everybody's sitting at the table, everybody ordering, and then it's time for the bill to come around, and people want to get up and run to the bathroom. That's what y'all do at church all the time. Y'all be like, oh man, this party going, what? Oh, the bill coming, all right, I got to run to the bathroom right quick. It's the same principle. We want it to be amazing. We want to see God doing amazing stuff. We want kids educated. We want folks to get food. We want to make sure that folks can come here and get help when they come out of prison. We want to make sure that there's great worship. We want to make sure that there's beautiful stuff on stage, but don't nobody want to pay the bill. Judge me if you want to. But even more so, we wind up missing the principle. Because when we're willing to give, we open ourselves up not to have closed hands. We're constantly reminded that it is not upon our own jobs that we're dependent, but we're truly dependent upon the grace and the giving of God. We constantly open ourselves to make sure that others that are around us are brought up, because what good is it if we way out there and we're all by ourselves? Is it not better when we all go together? And let's be honest, just keep looking at me. Some of you have made that attainment. You've gotten really far out there, and then you want your friends to come and they can't afford to go. And then you have to question, am I really about to pay for all these people to go? And if I do it now, then I know every single time we go someplace, they're going to be expecting me to pay for all these people to go. I barely want to pay for my kids to go. Because when you're the only one, and we haven't made sure that we've brought everybody else, that's what this becomes. Scripture is teaching us. It says that this is part of koinonia. This is what we do. We pull together because we can do more together than we can by ourselves. And then it closes with this one. It says not only is it fellowship, not only is it partnership, not only is it offering, literally bringing our resources together to take care of those that may not have, but it's also suffering. Maybe one of the most beautiful gifts of community is that we no longer have to suffer alone. Paul writes this and says, I want to suffer with Christ. And I want to suffer with Christ because I know if I can lean into that suffering, when resurrection comes, I'm also appended to that level of resurrection. That if I can get into the worst space with you, I can also better be in the best spaces with you. And isn't it beautiful when you can come to a place and people actually are okay if you don't have an okay day? People are not judging you for being down today. People are not judging you that you don't feel so happy today, but they can rally with you. Isn't it amazing when you're going through something and there are people that call and you ain't got to ask. They say, we got this already. We know that you're going through. We're just going to bring over some food. That's one less thing for you to have to worry about. We'll show up and we'll make sure that the grass gets cut. Don't worry about it. We in this thing together. We know that you lost and we're willing to suffer with you. Sometimes they ain't even got to do nothing. The fact that they're willing to sit there right next to you and let you cry your eyes out, and they don't tell you to stop crying, but they let you cry as long as you need to cry until your change comes. That's what community is. What would it look like if we were willing to suffer with one another? Not just look at somebody, not just point the finger, but if you hurting, I'm hurting. If you torn up, I'm torn up. If you not feeling good, I'm not feeling good. That's the way community is. Some of you know what that looks like. You got spouses or parents or children, and the worst thing is for a loved one to be going through, having to watch them decline and not be able to do anything. You don't run away from that. If you do run away from that, you risk fracturing the relationship. But when you stay in there together, I may not have all the answers. I may not know what to do, but I'm not going to let you go through this by yourself. That's community. And that's what I want to invite you to hear. Emmanuel is a community. We fellowship together. We partnership together. We offer together. But we suffer together. And we do this believing that in the time coming, God will come by and bless us by and by. That we may not always have the answers, but we'll worship together till we get them. That we may not always know which direction to turn, but we'll pray together until it happens. That we'll open the Bible together. We'll challenge one another to be better than we ever thought we could be. That we would be the community. Wouldn't it be nice if we actually were the church instead of acting like church? Wouldn't it be nice if this was us? And so, one of the beauties about anything, especially with vision, is vision acknowledges something that we are not yet for something that we desire to become. So I acknowledge that we're not there yet. Some of you might feel that that's a great way to go, man. We want to go there. And I want to invite you to come along. Some of you might say, you know what? I mean, that sounds like accountability. And, that sounds like commitment. And that sounds like something that people are going to expect of me. Yes. Absolutely. And I pray that if God is calling you to be a part of this fellowship, this koinonia, that you don't just take the good parts, but you take all of it. And we're all made better because of it. This is us. We're the ones that come together, fellowship together, laugh together, cross barriers together, because we know we have an amazing God. This is us. The ones that work together, see amazing things happen together, things that we could have never done by ourselves, victories that are won. Why? Because God was with us. This is us. This is us, those that are not trying to just hold our resources to ourselves, so scared to give anything, but we bring them to the storehouse and we see God do amazing things, exceedingly and abundantly above all that God could ever do. We imagine it, we say it, we celebrate it when it happens, we lift it up, and we help individuals when they are suffering. This is why I stand every single Sunday and say, if you are in need, don't do it by yourself. Don't find yourself out there, but call us. Don't call us family and not call us when you need us. Because we want to be there for you. Because this is community. This is us. And I pray God is calling you to be part of this us too. Pray with me.